Good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Farzy Show here at the Steven Singer Studios. My name is Marc Farzetta. I hope you guys had a wonderful Labor Day weekend on this fine Monday morning, Labor Day morning. I said that I was going to be down the shore, going to be doing a little the show remote type stuff. Not going to be doing that today. It's too much going on. It's just too much going on this week with the Phillies in the pennant race, even though I still don't believe they're going to win, and they certainly helped me with that theory over the weekend. The Eagles start on Sunday. Happy football season, everybody. It's a football Monday, our first one of the season. That's exciting. We got some 76ers stuff we're going to get into later today. We got Nick Sirianni addressing the media over the weekend as he talked to Good Morning Football on the NFL Network. Just so much to get into on today's show, and it's just going to be an action-packed week. So I felt, you know what? Let's head back from the shore a day early. The missus was just fine and dandy with that. And we took Lil Toots. She was at the beach. We were at Long Beach Island. Some friends of ours invited us down or up. And we had a blast. We absolutely had a blast. Lil Toots, I'll tell you right now, 2 years old. She loves the beach now. That was the first time. We've taken her to the beach before, but she was really little. It was like a year ago. And she didn't like the sand at all. Hated the sand. She is such a city kid. Like, my wife and I both grew up in the suburbs. My wife more grew up in like a farm country area of Maryland, and we took our daughter out like on actual grass. I remember the first time we took her out on actual grass, and she was like, "What is this substance?" And then we took her out on the sand in the Outer Banks a year ago, and she didn't know what to do with the sand. She hated it. Now loves it. Loves the beach. Loves the sand portion of the beach. She loves the ocean portion of the beach. I was taking her in the water, and it was like waves were crashing on her. Like, I'm holding her, of course, and she loved it. I thought she was getting owned by a wave, and she would just giggle. She thought it was hysterical. She absolutely loved the water, and she just did not want to get out. Even though yesterday was really cold, she didn't want to get out of the water. She wanted to stay in there. And she was like teeth chattering. And I was like, at one point, I got to be the responsible parent here and just say, all right, babe, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of the water. It's a little too cold, sweetie. And she just did not want to leave. And when I finally took her out, because I love my kid and didn't want her to get hypothermia, she was ranting and raving. And I said, no, we got to go out. And then the minute we threw a towel on her, she was all toasty and loved that too. Took a nice little nap on the beach. She did, so that was pretty awesome. But we had a nice time for an abbreviated stay down the shore. It was as nice as it could have been. Just too much going on this weekend to not give you guys a full service program on this fine Monday, again, Labor Day morning. Like I said, we got some stuff to get into with the Philadelphia Phillies. They're still 2 games out of first place in the National League East. They also 2.5 games out of the wild card, the second wild card spot in the National League in general. So we got all that to get into. Some puzzling things when it comes to Joe Girardi and this Phillies rotation as it is, piecemealed together with a guy like Ranger Suarez at the back end of it. I don't understand the decision in pulling Ranger Suarez. We'll get to that. I understand the Phillies were in a situation where they just didn't feel like he would be healthy enough to continue to pitch. As I've been saying, going back to even pulling a guy like Hale, for instance, in the middle of a perfect game, I don't get it. You're either healthy or you're not healthy. And I hate the idea of playing scared. And I know the reason they lost that game wasn't, Joe Girardi even said, you'll hear from him in a second, the reason they lost that game wasn't because of poor pitching. The reason they lost that game was because they only scored 2 runs. But if you have something working for you, why not continue to let it work for you? Why let worry, doubt, and caution really start to dictate your decision-making? And I feel like that's a big part of why Joe Girardi has left a lot to be desired this year. Sure, injuries have played a huge part in why the Phillies are where they are right now in terms of the regular everyday lineup. But in terms of managing the bullpen, managing the rotation, leaving starters in, not taking them out, although whatever it might be, or taking them out too soon, I feel like Joe Girardi has not had a good feel for his starting pitching this entire season. And again, you could go back to David Hale. You could go back to Aaron Nola going out there in San Diego. A lot of instances where they ended up losing that game in San Diego with Aaron Nola starting, and he gets the at-bat in a close game in the 8th inning, I believe it was. So there's certain situations that you thought Joe Girardi would have that feel for a little bit more as an ex-ball player, as a manager of many years over, as a World Series champion. You would expect him to go by the feel aspect of the game a little bit more, and have that better feel. And we knew coming into it he was going to be a big numbers guy. But for whatever reason, the numbers have been there. The feel has not. And I was waiting for that healthy balance between the two. And managers can win and lose your games. We talk about it all the time, where a good manager can win you 5, 7 games a season. A bad manager could lose you 10 to 15, whatever it might be. That feel aspect of it for Joe Girardi is the thing I can't get over. David Hale's going out there pitching his guts out, basically, and he pulls it from the game out of caution. Ranger Suarez on Saturday goes out there, and he's pitching great. And again, you pull him because of being overly cautious. Ranger Suarez says he understands the injury aspect of it after the game, but then on the other side of it, he also says he doesn't worry about his next start. It's all about that given moment. And when you have a guy pitching the way he was pitching in the 6th inning, you can't pull him out before then. You got to continue to ride him, especially in September. That's I heard Ricky Bell make this point in the postgame show on NBC Sports Philadelphia. At what point do you acknowledge it's September? You go back and forth between, oh, it's early in the season, there's plenty of time, I got to do this, to, oh, it's September, we're in the middle of a push here, so we got to make sure we're being cautious. How do you play that balancing act? And I'll tell you right now, when you do attempt to play that balancing act as a member of the Phillies right now, or as if you're Joe Girardi, you failed epically. You can't play that game continuously throughout the season of making excuses for why you're pulling your guys. If they're pitching well and they're healthy, you let it ride. Joe Girardi was ridiculously confusing. Again, we'll let you hear from Joe Girardi coming up in just a second. We do have some sound that I want to get to you guys from Nick Sirianni being on Good Morning Football as the season starts this week, Sunday, in Atlanta against the Falcons. Hugh Lamont Douglas III will be joining us tomorrow on his normal Hughes Day, of course. So we'll talk about things Falcons and Eagles there. But Nick Sirianni continues to confuse me in a couple of things. I don't think, first off, schematically speaking, in the tangible substance thing, right? He continues to confuse me as far as what this guy's game plan is going to be. And I know that shouldn't be that difficult to figure out when you have 2 tight ends and guys that can play at that high level, as we talked about with Jimmy Kempski last week, and you have a quarterback that is supposed to be better than what you had last year in Carson Wentz. And that's not exactly a high bar Carson Wentz set. And you also have a healthy offensive line going into the season. So we'll see how all that works out. But schematically, what can we expect from Nick Sirianni? Can we see the 12 personnel? Can we see guys like Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell? Can we see guys like that combining for 25 touches a game, meaning runs and carries and receptions? Can we count on that type of offense to be reliant on your running backs like we haven't seen in years past? I certainly hope so. Are we going to see a lot of the read option with Jalen Hurts? Are we going to see a lot of the deep ball with guys like you have right now in your wide receiving core with Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith? What are we going to be seeing on the norm, on the reg from guys like that? And we really haven't seen much of it from Nick Sirianni because, as we all know, in the preseason, not only you're not playing with your starters for the vast majority of the time, 99.9% of the time, you're also playing and calling a very vanilla style game plan. Not that you game plan during the preseason, but you get what I'm saying. In terms of what you're trying to practice to get ready for the season, you're seeing the very vanilla offense being run. I think we're going to see a lot more aggressive defense from Jonathan Gannon because it's hard to not be more aggressive than Jim Schwartz, who just constantly relied on his front four to make sure they got that push on the quarterback, and they're getting paid to do that. I get it, but I think you're still going to see a lot more of an aggressive Jonathan Gannon. By all accounts, that's what you're going to see. We at least have seen those cards a little bit. Nick Sirianni, we haven't seen any cards. When he gives the opportunity to talk about 12 personnel, he's like, well, I don't know how much 12 personnel we're going to run, but I understand why people would say that because of the tight ends and the talent that we have here, and Zach Ertz still being here now, we could say. I think we're going to see a good amount of 12 personnel. I don't know if it'll be the league-leading 12 personnel like you saw with the Eagles last year and the Indianapolis Colts, by the way, where Nick Sirianni came from under Frank Reich. But I'm not as concerned about that because I think we're going to see enough of that. And I think even if they don't go with a lot of 12 personnel, you're going to have a very talented tight end on the football team pretty much at all times between Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. But what I'm more concerned about is how they're going to use the running backs. And that's where Nick Sirianni started to give you a little bit of information on it when he did his hit with Good Morning Football over the weekend. When he talked about using Kenny Gainwell and he talked about using Miles Sanders for angry runs. And I'll give you a little bit more detail, but basically, long story short, Good Morning Football, if you don't watch it, they have during the season a angry run segment where they award a scepter It's an actual king scepter that they award to the guy that had the angriest run of the week. Well, they asked Nick Sirianni about this. Nick Sirianni said, I'm really hoping that Kenny Gainwell and Miles Sanders get that scepter week after week after week, basically. And the way he's answering it, it lets me know that they're going to be involved in the offense, because of course they are, but they're going to have a little bit of a bigger role than what we saw under Doug Peterson, but it's not going to be a drastic difference that I know a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans are hoping for. And I was doing a podcast with some guys I go on with, Broad Street South Sports. They're great guys. And one of the things they were most worried about, most concerned with, I should say, was the amount of runs you're going to see this season. The style of run, the style, what you're going to be asking these running backs to do throughout the season. And as hopeful as I was, you're going to see a lot more of that screen game. And I think you're going to see that really with Kenny Gainwell more so than anybody, then Boston Scott, then Miles Sanders. I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed in the amount of runs. Doug Peterson left a lot to be desired, a lot of meat on the bone when it came to how this offense ran the football. I think you're going to see a little bit of a difference. It'll be noticeable at first, but I don't think it's going to be a drastic change in philosophy, because ultimately one thing matters. And you go to Frank Reich, and they have some great running backs out there in Indianapolis, where Nick Sirianni's coming from. The bottom line is the overall philosophy under Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie, and we both, Howie especially, know that he has got a lot to do with the roster on game day. He's got a lot to do with the type of offense and the type of team that this team has every single year. We all know that. That constant, I don't think, is going to be straying from the norm that we have understood while Howie Roseman has been running things here in Philadelphia. They put together a specific type of team for a specific type of game plan, and I think Nick Sirianni more so fits what Howie Roseman wants to do with this offense and what Howie Roseman wants to do with this roster than it does Nick Sirianni wanting to deviate from anything that we have seen on the norm here in Philadelphia. Now, the X factor here isn't Kenny Gainwell. It's not Miles Sanders. It's not your tight ends. It's not even your offensive line. We all know that a healthy offensive line will lead to a more productive offense. But really what it comes down to is Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is the ultimate X factor here. Jalen Hurts is the guy, as we've been saying all offseason, he's the guy that could be the biggest difference on this football team from last year to this year. Even with the offensive line, if they have their injury issues again, the biggest difference is going to be Jalen Hurts, because we saw without a healthy offensive line how much a guy like Carson Wentz wasn't ready for the moment, how much he couldn't ad-lib like he used to, whether that was because of the knee injury or because he wasn't ready for the scheme, he didn't have the guys around him like he's used to having in terms of skill set with weapons and all that stuff. Or it's going to be a matter of Jalen Hurts bouncing back from that, learning to ad-lib again, learning to make plays with his legs. Ultimately, if he is better than Carson Wentz last year, again, not a high bar, this offense will surprise a lot of people. And that's one thing that Ross Tucker went into depth with us last week. And we'll let you hear from Ross again from those that didn't see the interview last week. So we'll get more into what the Philadelphia Eagles have going on this year with everything starting up this week. And I can't help it. There's still some stuff left on the bone from last week with Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and all that stuff that goes on with the off-the-court issues this offseason for the 76ers. So we'll get to all that in the Farzy show today. But let's start it off with the Phillies, who did have a bit of a disappointing weekend, to say the absolute least. The Philadelphia Phillies go into the weekend 2 games out of first place. So you feel pretty good. They leave the weekend still 2 games out of first place. So are you still feeling kind of good? I'll tell you why I'm not. Before we get into anything specific with Ranger Suarez, this is the biggest concern I had going into this final month of the season. And this is why I buried the Phillies when Rhys Hoskins went down, because I just felt like that was the straw. That was when we did the eulogy and that whole thing. This team consistently plays down to their opponent, as we know. You look at Arizona Diamondbacks, what they did out there. You look at this past series with the Marlins. And although they were going into it, riding a bit of a high, feeling pretty good, feeling themselves a little bit, you just had a feeling that, again, this Marlins team was going to be the team that was going to bring them back down to earth. And boy, did they do that. Friday, they come out, they don't have it. Saturday, they come out, they had it, they lost it. Yesterday, they salvaged a game, the 3rd game of this series, in extra innings. Freddie Galvis scoring the game-winning run, Odubel Herrera driving him in. For whatever reason, this team just consistently looks snake-bit against teams that they need to put away. And when you watch the way they came out over the weekend, you can't tell me that there was a concern. Like you felt in the early goings here, Freddie Galvis comes out and they open up this series with a leadoff home run. They're like, all right, there we go. Let's get it going. They end up giving it right back with Kyle Gibson in the bottom half of the first inning, a 2-run home run. And then all of a sudden the Phillies are now down. Kyle Gibson, who's been one of your most consistent pitchers since he's been acquired at the trade deadline, gives up 6 runs in a week span. You also saw Aaron Nola give up 6 runs. This is not how a team that is poised to make the playoffs should be operating, whether that be 2.5 games out of the wild card or 2 games out of the NL East. You can't consistently play down to your opponent. Now, you could talk about all the skill and all the talent in the world when it comes to who's on the field playing. But when it comes to mentality, when it comes to being mentally prepared to play the game, that's where, again, I go back to the manager. And the manager can't continue to send signals of caution, of cautiousness, of being scared the way he has with the way he's handled this rotation. So I bring you now back to Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez is dealing Saturday against the Miami Marlins. He's got a microscopic, 1.30 ERA, something like that, since he's become a starter for this baseball team. And they continue to have him stretched out. I made the point during the start in San Diego that this is one of the things I was concerned about. What if you get him to that point where he's stretched out and he actually starts to fail because he starts not only going through one inning of work where he only faces batters once, but what happens the second time? What happens in the third or fourth inning when he starts to see those hitters for a second time and those hitters see him, more importantly, for a second time and they start to figure him out? That wasn't happening on Saturday. He was still pitching. He started to leak a little bit at about 70 pitches. Started to allow a couple of runs, but that's okay. It's gonna happen in baseball. If you're a pitcher, you're gonna allow a couple of runs. It's no reason to hit the panic button if you're Joe Girardi. So Joe sees his pitch count starting to get up there, decides he's gonna pull him at the 6th inning. He was pitching fine. I'm not going to an untrustworthy bullpen any chance I get, especially if I already know I'm having a bullpen game in the following day, which is what the Phillies did yesterday. So here's Joe Girardi on a very confusing rationale as to why pull Ranger Suarez in what ended up being a 3-2 loss on Saturday.
We knew that. We knew that we were going to be, careful. We wanted to see how he was today. We went through some little, it was a little nicked up after his last start, so we were just careful. I watched him go out and throw in the 5th inning and warm up. I wasn't crazy about what I saw, so we just said we're going to cut it off there. But you got to understand his workload has increased dramatically, and that's not why we didn't win this game. I mean, he may have won 1 more, maybe 2 at the most, but we just have to be a little bit careful.
Just kind of a dead arm there? Is that what you're...
Yeah. I mean, he had a little tricep issue that we were able to check through. And you could see the velocity wasn't quite as where it was. It did not act up today. But, I can't take a chance.
I get it. You're worried about injury. I understand that. How are you worried about it in September, though? That's what I don't understand. It's been a while since Ranger Suarez has come out of the bullpen. He's been a starting pitcher now for, a month? It's been a while. The stretch-out period should have happened already. And he talks about the dead arm. You heard the question there. He talks about being concerned about the injury, and I even saw it reported as though, because of tricep tightness. When Joe Girardi just said right then and there, it wasn't a problem today, but, I got to be cautious. In September, I get if it's July. I get if it's June. You don't want to lose him if he's a starting pitcher in the rotation, or if he's still in the bullpen, he's becoming a valuable piece to your bullpen. What I don't understand is making this call on September 4th, September 3rd. That doesn't make any sense to me. You're in a pennant race. You're trying to win the NL East. You're trying to make it to the play. You're in a wild card race, for crying out loud. You're trying to make it to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. And now in September is when you're going to be timid? No, September is for unloading the clip, man. You got to keep on pushing here. Ranger Suarez, if he's going to come out after the game, and tell you that he's not going to be worried about his next start, then that guy tells you he's ready to let it ride. At what point do you put the chips in the center of the table? You're going up against the Miami Marlins, a team you should beat, yes, but you know that your team at the same time has a tendency to play down to their opponent, and over the last 3 seasons have really had a tendency to fall specifically play down to the Miami Marlins. I remember talking to Jason Stark a couple of years ago. And shocker, the NL East wasn't predicted to be the best division in baseball like it was supposed to be this past year, or this current season, I should say. So Jason Stark was saying the NL East is going to come down to one thing: who beats the Marlins? The Braves, over the last couple of years, have beaten the crap out of the Marlins. The Phillies, meanwhile, have continued to play down to the Marlins and gotten their asses handed to them by the Marlins. And now here we are in September looking at this series where they go into it with all the momentum in the world. And now all of a sudden what happens? They play down to their opponent again. And now things don't get any easier. Now you're going to be facing a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, who are one of the best teams in baseball all season long, who've just continued to blowout teams is the way I'll say it. I almost said something canned teams. But that's what they've been doing throughout the entire season, is just blowing teams out of the water. So this team right now, this Phillies team, needs to go in there almost riled up. Like realizing that this is the point. They need to go after the Brewers and go after the rest of the season and just let it rip. You can't continuously have a manager look at their team, look at his team, and play scared and play cautious and manage cautiously, overly cautious, I should say, because that's been the bigger problem I've had with Joe Girardi. Two things. One is the feel has just not been there, and I was hoping it would be there a little bit more than it was under Gabe Kapler. It hasn't been there. The other is the message you send to your team when you're being overly cautious. At what point do you stop playing scared? Now, one of the things I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks is with Rhys Hoskins being out of the lineup, I've wanted more from Bryce Harper. And Bryce has been the Phillies' best player all year, by far. I mean, he's an MVP candidate, no doubt. But one of the things I wanted to see him do this year in the clubhouse was take the reins, because I believe wholeheartedly he can be a better leader than Rhys Hoskins. And for whatever reason, the players in this locker room, players in this clubhouse look up to Rhys Hoskins more so than anybody. With Rhys not playing, Bryce Harper has taken the leadership reins just like I have wanted him to. It should be easy for him to do it. With the way he's playing, you play like that, it should be easy for you to be more vocal in the clubhouse. Not just with the front office about who to sign, not like that, but more vocal with the team in when to really start to pushing it into overdrive. And Bryce Harper's message to the team after salvaging game 3 of this 3-game series where they lost the previous 2 against the Marlins and going into Milwaukee was everyone needs to play better, including me. Bryce Harper saying this. Everyone needs to play better. Get this series, put it on the back burner, put it in the rearview mirror. See you later. We got to move on to the Brewers because he got a tall order ahead of him playing one of the best teams in baseball. Bryce Harper's putting himself out there, saying that he needs to play better and everyone on this team needs to play. Bryce Harper is calling himself out with the MVP type season that he has had for this Phillies baseball team. He's saying that he needs to go out there and improve. He needs to go out there and play better when everybody else really needs to start picking it up. Whether that's JT Realmuto, Andrew McCutchen, who's played a lot better as of late, a couple of home runs this weekend. Then you also look at a guy like Freddie Galvis coming in here, who has been a shot in the arm to this baseball team. He had a couple of home runs over the weekend as well. That's what Matt Vierling has been a sight for sore eyes for this ball club. More on Matt Vierling, by the way, coming up in our morning rush. As not to go negative, but Matt Vierling playing well, and then the story that came out about how he winded up at first base made me feel good about him, made me feel terrible about the Phillies, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But Matt Vierling comes up and gives you some quality at bats, gets 2 RBI doubles for you in game 1 of this series. Bryce Harper issuing a team-wide challenge is exactly what I wanted to hear. He said exactly what I think most fans were thinking after they wrapped up this series with the Marlins, which was you can't lose 2 of 3. You can't lose this series to the Marlins in September when every game counts the way it does. And even though they leave the weekend at the same deficit that they entered the weekend with 2 games out of first place in the division, it still lost time. Because even Bryce Harper, going back to what he said going into the weekend, was that time is running out. Time is running out for this baseball team. So even though they don't leave the weekend 4 games out of first place, it's still taking L's, because as the time goes on, the magic number for the Braves starts to shrink. And with that happening, the Phillies obviously need to go in a little bit more of a desperation mode. And I think that all starts not necessarily with Bryce Harper saying the right things with the media. It obviously starts with him on the baseball field being productive as he has been. But it also goes to the manager. Joe Girardi needs to tell his team, guys, our backs are against the wall now. It's the end of the season. We got to start unloading now. And that doesn't happen when you pull your starting pitcher who's cruising along at 71 pitches. before the 6th inning and handing the ball to a very, very shaky bullpen, especially when you know the next day Coonrod's starting the game for you. And that's going to be a bullpen game for 9 and 10 innings, actually. To me, it just doesn't make any damn sense. And that's where I think the Phillies are ultimately coming up short, is just letting everybody else know. And Bryce Harper, I think, is trying to do that. And it's a much different man. I'm not saying he's calling out his manager. That's an overdramatic hot take. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that Bryce Harper is saying the things that I think match up more so with the mentality this team needs to have going forward than what your manager is telling you right now, which is, I got to be cautious. It's September, Joe. You got to unload at this point. 2 games out, whatever it takes to break this trend of not being a postseason baseball team. Let's end that sooner rather than later, and you're not going to do that when you're managing or playing scared. That's what upset me the most about the Phils. We'll give you a little bit more on that on the Morning Rush a little bit later. I want to let you hear this. Before we go into football, I do want to say this. No guest today, by the way. Monday, too much to recap over the weekend. I got too much on my mind. No time for a guest, but if we did have a guest, it'd be brought to you by Rothman Orthopaedics on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. How about that? I do want to tell you before we get more into football now, with it being the opening week of the season, I want to say this. When it comes to Steven Singer here at the Steven Singer Jeweler Studios, we want to make sure that we hook you guys up. So that's why you got to go to Steven Singer for the perfect price every single day. Don't forget, log on to IHateStevenSinger.com. I still can't believe it. Less than a week away, 5 days away from remembering a day that we'll never forget. Now, here's what I say. No, we'll never forget it. I don't think we'll ever forget the feeling and the emotion of anyone that lived through September 11th. All the people that experienced that, all the Americans that experienced that across the globe. I don't think you'll ever forget the emotions you had on that day. And Steven's making sure that he does his part. If you go on to StevenSinger.com, IHateStevenSinger.com, you can see the beautiful tribute that he's made with the 9/11 20th anniversary pendant that proceeds for that go towards building a beautiful memorial to the people of whose lives were lost on 9/11 2001. So make sure you do that. IHateStevenSinger.com, and you can see this beautiful pendant. But right now, for people that want to get engaged, you can always check out Steven Singer, because the person that you want to spend your rest of your life with, when you find that person, it's great, it's beautiful. But you know what? Sometimes people have too many excuses. I can't get engaged right now. A ring's too expensive. I don't know anything about diamonds. Steven Singer walks you through everything to make it easy. That's why people say I hate Steven Singer, because he takes away all the excuses. I Hate Steven Singer takes away every excuse in the book, and he makes ring shopping so unbelievably easy. I Hate Steven Singer Jewelers, a real Philly jeweler that has been making it too easy to buy real diamonds for over 4 decades. He specializes in diamond engagement rings, and his staff of real jewelry experts, real jewelers, real people. They help you find the perfect ring or gift at the perfect price. No call center, no sales, no haggling, no promo codes, no discounts. Just everything, every single day. He guarantees the perfect price every single day. Check out Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, right in Philadelphia. You're online at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Always fast and free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, we're going to get into some other stuff going on today. With the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Sirianni, who addressed the media by way of Good Morning Football. And I was taken aback, but first by a couple of things here. One of the things Nick Sirianni got into, one of the first things they asked him about, was the infamous now game of horse that he played with Gardner Minshew, where Gardner Minshew decided to take his shirt off because he felt like he couldn't win in a dress shirt. Nick Sirianni gave his point of view of the shirtless Minshew when they met 2 years ago.
And we found out a little bit about the guy. I found out what an ultra competitor Gardner Minshew is, right? And, to the point where I was beating him in this game of horse, and he didn't feel comfortable. He's like, I can't beat you with this dress shirt on. You mind if I pop my shirt? I said, hey, do whatever you got to do. And so that's what I remember about it. Again, I just saw his competitiveness and we were able to talk ball as we were doing it and kind of figuring out what he knew about ball and this and that. And then we spent our rest of our time in the classroom. But that was just a way that we get the guys to loosen up and see how they compete and connect with them at the same time.
I have no issue. And he was actually pushed on it during the show about his rock, paper, scissors. I have no issue whatsoever with Nick Sirianni and how he tries to find competitors and he tries to find the competitive edge in every player that he's going to play for or every player that could be playing for him. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But when it comes to Nick Sirianni and all the things that he got into during this little interview here, he was pushed on the rock, paper, scissors thing. And really, in all honesty, look, it's an off-season thing. It's a desperation thing that you got to do because it's COVID and you're not meeting with these guys in person. I love the idea that a coach is looking to get creative, and that was my stance even way back when the story first broke. I love that a coach is looking to find any way possible, even outside the box, like rock, paper, scissors, to just see if a guy like Landon Dickerson is competitive. And it was London Fletcher that was pushing him on it, saying, "Coach, I don't understand the rock, paper, scissors thing, man. You got to. We were having some fun with that. You got to walk me through that." And Nick Sirianni goes right into it, saying, "Look, it only happened because of the restrictions that we're facing right now in our world. So you got to find another way other than horse, like he did with Gardner Minshew, who had to pop his shirt off, as the coach put it. He's got to find a way for these guys to be competitive and find a way to test how competitive they really are. And look." You know right away, like you could have ultra competitive friends when you're growing up, or you're even playing pickup basketball, whatever it might be, and you know when the hamster on the wheel in your head, on that person's head, starts to really turn, when they really start to get the competitive juices going, and you could tell when there's kind of an attitude shift in the game where it's not just fun anymore; it's all about winning, and Nick Sirianni's trying to tap into that by testing how competitive these guys can be, whether that's a game of horse, a topless game of horse with Gardner Minshew, or that's a game of rock, paper, scissors. So I love that about him. He didn't really go into depth about when he met Jalen Hurts as far as interviewing him before the draft 2 years ago. He didn't go into depth about any rock, paper, scissors. He didn't go into depth about any game of horse. He just said that one of the coaches that had coached Jalen Hurts in college that he knows pretty well, I think he was on the Colts coaching staff, said that the guy's just an absolute stud. That he said that their interview went really well, but he said that the coach said that he was just an absolute stud of a player. So that's cool. That's fine. But Nick Sirianni, in terms of everything that he's bringing to the table with the competitiveness, let's keep that going. Let's keep that going into the season, because hopefully that was the case at the practices that we've heard so much about. We know it wasn't the case during the games themselves during the preseason. So one of the things they did ask Nick Sirianni about going into his first week as an NFL head coach was the message to the team. And I always love this question. Nick Sirianni went in talking about the values he has with his players. And some of the values are commitment, competing, accountability. Those are the values he likes to have in every single football player. Well, here's Nick Sirianni talking about the message of the team going into now week 1 against the Falcons.
Now you got an opponent in sight, right? It's kind of like I kind of made the analogy to the team, like when Rocky was fighting Ivan Drago, he had his picture up on the mirror right here and staring at it. So now, right, that's where we're at right now. We're into that 17-round heavyweight championship fight, round 1 in Atlanta.
There we go. That's how you have to think of it. 17 games of a championship fight, 17 rounds of a championship fight. That's how you got to think of it. But let me just ask this question, generally speaking. And I know on a holiday, our chat's not exactly bumping today, but I just want to throw this out to some people. When it comes to the Rocky references, look, I love in the fourth quarter of a game, the third period of a game, whatever it might be. I love when the team's down, Philadelphia team's down. I love when the Rocky montage starts. Like that gets me amped up. It really does. But sometimes it feels like it's a little forced. And I love the movies, the Rocky movies. I hate when it becomes a thing that like defines Philadelphia. Like that's just one thing. It's a little, I don't know, maybe that's just me. But that's just where I'm at with the Rocky thing. But Nick Sirianni going Rocky 4, which has got a lot of pub over the last couple of weeks here. Rocky 4 with the picture of Ivan Drago, and now that's supposed to be Matt Ryan or Arthur Smith or whoever it is, right? The new head coach of the Falcons. Like, that's the new opponent, and you're ripping that off the mirror and you're throwing it away. Like, I want the coach to have the mentality of that it's a 17-round heavyweight championship fight, and you got to win every round, right? I want the head coach to have that type of mentality. It just seems like it's one of those things that might be a little on the hokey side, if I may. I want the Eagles to have that type of mentality, but I also want the Eagles to feel like they can show up and beat the crap out of anybody. I don't want them to always feel like they're the underdog. I know that's something we always love and we appreciate, and it certainly was the mindset of the Super Bowl win and all that stuff. But like at some point, doesn't that get a little tiring? I like every year since the Super Bowl, I feel like we have examined this underdog mentality. At some point, I want the Eagles to have the confidence that they're going to go out there and beat the brakes off anybody. Not giving a damn about somebody saying that you're not good enough. Not giving a damn about somebody saying, hey, this team, they just can't put it together. Young quarterback, first-year head coach. Offensive line is always injured. New defensive coordinator. Like at some point, I want the Eagles to feel like they can show up and not take their opponent lightly by any means, but at least have the confidence they're going to go out there and have some swagger. Like that's really what that's one of the things I'm looking forward to about the Jalen Hurts era. Not so much the Nick Sirianni era, but the Jalen Hurts era. Is that I feel like Jalen Hurts is going to be the type of quarterback that's going to go out there and always feel like he's in it. And I feel like that's something that gets lost with an underdog mentality, so to speak. I feel like, oh, no, wait, everyone's going to count us out at some point, then we're going to rally. How about everyone just thinks you're really good? Like, is that too much to ask for? And I feel like with Jalen Hurts, if things start off right with him and your offensive line stays healthy, I feel like that's eventually the point we're going to get to, where you feel like this team can beat anybody, they can hang with anybody. And if the defense is as good as I think they can be, and your offensive line is as healthy as it plays to the potential by being healthy, that's all they have to do is basically stay healthy. And I feel like they're going to be a pretty damn good offensive line. And your running backs are good, and your tight ends are good, and your wide receivers are good. I feel like this team can make a lot of things happen this year. And that's why I'll always go back to whether, how you're judging this team is based on how you feel Jalen Hurts is going to perform this year. And I feel like this can be an 8-9 win team. I feel like they are right around there. But if Jalen Hurts can play at a much higher level and these guys stay healthy, you're talking about 10, 11, 12 wins on a season, which I know will blow people out of the water with excitement. All right. We'll get into something else here because it also gives you a lot of I don't know, a lot of inside information from Nick Sirianni. As I said earlier in the show, I don't feel like he is going to be running the football at an amazing pace that'll get you all excited with how they're going to be using these running backs and all that. But I do feel like it's going to be slightly more than what you're going to see or what you have seen in the past from Doug Peterson, what you saw in the past from Andy Reid. Here is this segment they do on Good Morning Football called Rock, Paper, Scepter. Maybe that's just what Kyle Brandt was joking about. But I don't watch the show often enough to know the segment, at least. And Nick Sirianni gets asked about how they're going to be running the football. Are they going to have the scepter awarded to an angry runner, as they call it, from the Philadelphia Eagles? Here is Nick Sirianni breaking down how they're going to run the football with guys like Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, Jordan Howard even, and who I guess got practice squatted, and then also Miles Sanders, of course.
So I love that segment. I look forward to our guys being on that segment this year with Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott, really, and Jordan Howard. So I think that segment always starts with what you do up front, and I'm really excited about this group that we have up front. And I'm just really excited about it. Really good offensive line, great offensive line coach, and Jeff Stoutland, and they get it started. They get that momentum of the back building so that back can smack into that guy and finish that off for the angry run. So it all starts up front. I'm looking forward to watching it this year. I want the scepter. Is that what we call it?
Scepter.
I want the scepter in Philadelphia. That's what I'm excited about.
It sounds great. I'm just not buying that we're going to see any major difference in how the Eagles are running the football than what we have seen under Reid or under Doug Peterson. I feel like it's going to be one of those things where the majority of these running backs, their touches are going to come in the passing game. Like, yeah, they'll get their carries. Like Miles Sanders might get you, 10 carries a game, 12 carries a game, something like that. But I just feel like it's going to default to a lot of pass-happy offense, unfortunately. And I feel like you have two very talented running backs in Miles Sanders, and I feel like Kenny Gainwell is going to turn a lot of heads this season. I wish that you could rely on these guys for more runs per game, and I know a lot of it is dictated on whether or not they're ahead or winning or losing in the second half. But initially, in the opening possessions, I'd love to see these running backs incorporated in the game plan, at least in some capacity, whether that's running the football, whether it's catching the ball out of the backfield. I know that you got two talented players in Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott's another one, and Miles Sanders. Why not give them the opportunity to run that football? And on top of all that, what they're going to do a lot of times is spell the offensive line, because the majority of offensive linemen love run blocking as opposed to pass blocking, because run blocking, we all know, is the thud and you're done. Pass blocking, you're holding a block. They'd rather not do that. On top of it, not only will you be spelling your offensive line, you'll also be spelling your first-year starting quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who I know has 4 starts under his belt already. But a guy that's going to be your franchise quarterback, at least for this season, you're going to be your number one guy. This helps not totally put everything on his shoulders on every single play. If you could rely on your running backs to run the football, and you could give your offensive line a break and your quarterback a break from actually having to make a play, I feel like that only helps your offense in the long run. So I'm hoping we see a little bit more. As I like to say, I'm rooting for it. I'm not betting on it, unfortunately. So that was Nick Sirianni on Good Morning Football. The energy was there, as you can always tell. It's always there with him. But as far as real inside information, I feel like by not saying a lot about what they were going to do offensively speaking, I feel like, although he didn't use a lot of words, I feel like he didn't really give you a lot of information as to what they're going to do. But at the same time, I'm not expecting Nick Sirianni to go out there and run the football and ground and pound and go back to that old school style of football, because I feel like that's just done in the NFL. I feel like you're going to continue to see that pass-happy offense that we have seen under Doug Peterson, we've seen under Andy Reid. Maybe not to that wild extreme, but I just don't think it'll be a glaringly obvious difference like some of us were rooting for going into the season. So that was Nick Sirianni on Good Morning Football. Right now, let me tell you about our friends at Rothman Orthopaedics. Rothman Orthopaedics, ladies and gentlemen. When you have an orthopedic issue, you need a physician who eats, sleeps, and breathes orthopedics. You need an exceptionally specialized Rothman Orthopaedics physician. They not only specialize in orthopedics, but each of their physicians only focuses in on one area of the body, which means you can have the confidence to get past the pain and be what you were. Learn more at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Rothman Orthopaedics, the official orthopedic partner of your Phillies, Eagles, and 76ers. How about this new sponsor to the Farzy Show? Welcome aboard, BetQL. If you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you need to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. Their Best Bets computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets per year to give you the best bet recommendation for every game. So if you want to get an edge over the sportsbook, download the BetQL app. Across all major sports, it gives you the reasoning behind why you should place your bet. Their model covers everything from point spreads, over-unders, as well as player prop bets. So make sure you take advantage of the BetQL app. Don't want to use the model and prefer to do your own research? BetQL has all the necessary tools for your betting research needs. Everything the sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injuries, all that stuff, breaking news, and even leaderboards to track your success. Download the BetQR app right now. Head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download the BetQL app. Get all the info to be better than the sportsbook with BetQL. And how about our Steak and Main sponsor? Love these guys. Fine dining in the heart of Northeast Maryland. Whether you dine in the more upscale steakhouse or casual bar and patio, you'll enjoy the highest quality of prime meats, fresh seafood, world-class oyster bar, and freshly prepared sushi. All that in an extensive wine list, including their own Cavada Cellars wines. Open every day for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Steak and Main in Northeast Maryland voted #1 place for steaks in America by the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel. Check them out for yourself. Go to steakandmain.com for more information. That's steakandmain.com. Also, all the great sports stories that are going on in the Philadelphia sports scene right now, make sure you're following them all, including all Eagles season long, with the great people at PHL Sports Nation. That's PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience at phlsportsnation.com. Now let's get into our social media check-in, brought to you by Steak and Main and steakandmain.com. Dan Schwartz, just being amazing. Checking in on our social media check-in on our message board right here. Producer Jim obviously is in. We don't take many days off here at the Farzy Show. I went on a week-long vacation even in Colorado. We still give you some fresh content every day, did we not? And yes, I was supposed to be down the shore for an extra day. And guess what? Just too much going on this week, folks. So we came back early. Dan is checking in on the chat. Would it be normal without PJ? You're damn right. Oh, here we go. This is on the Rocky conversation. Completely cheesy, made me cringe. Maybe I'm just a hater. I feel like most Philadelphians are along the same lines you and I are at, Dan, where you love Rocky, you think it's great, but you don't want it to define the city of Philadelphia. And unfortunately, it becomes kind of like a crutch for a lot of people, where it just becomes the main, like, oh, we don't have anything else to get into, so here's Rocky. Oh, our other teams suck. Here's Rocky. To me, I just can't. I guess I'm just over it. I don't know. Temple looked terrible. I don't even want to get into it. Temple got blown out of the water, Dan, but I appreciate you bringing it up. It's not a good start to the season. Sorry for the low blow, but you didn't need BetQL for that one. Well, I mean, when don't you need BetQL, to be honest with you? All the fine research you can do on the BetQL app? Come on, people. Yeah. Real quick social media check-in today. Dan, appreciate you, brother. Always a pleasure. That is our social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. I do want to get to this. We didn't have a Rothman Orthopaedics guest today, but we did have one last week on Friday leading into the weekend. I was just giving you my rundown of the Philadelphia Eagles and what I'm expecting for this season. Here is our good friend Ross Tucker breaking it down for us on why he's optimistic about this Eagles season coming up.
I think the defense is going to be better than people think. I think they'll surprise some people with what they're going to do schematically, having watched them at training camp a few times. And again, the receivers are young, but they're explosive. And what people haven't talked enough about because of all the trade rumors, Ertz looked awesome in practice. Awesome. So you've got a young quarterback, a great O-line. You should have a good running back, 2 good tight ends. And I think Watkins and Rager give you speed. I think Devontae Smith's going to get open. I mean, he's got it. He knows how to stick that foot in the ground and get open. So, look, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, Mark. I'm not getting carried away.
Right.
I just think they're going to be better than everybody else seems to think.
That's all you can ask for at this point. They'll surprise some people. You know what I mean? They'll take some people by surprise this year. And hopefully they do that. I'm crossing my fingers for that. But he seems really amped up. And Ross Tucker, one of my major takeaways from last week's show was the Zach Ertz story. Last year, he didn't have a good year at all. He had the injury issues during his press conference last week. He recapped how much this offseason, sucked for him in so many different ways, most notably his own injury, then the injury to his wife, Julie Ertz of the National Soccer. Both those guys going through injuries and then going through therapy together. They called it couples therapy, which is like physical therapy, which I thought was hilarious. But Zach Ertz, people are forgetting how talented this guy is. And there's been all the off-the-field stuff going on over really the last 2 seasons. Last year he didn't play well because he had the injury. The offensive line was banged up. Carson had a bad year. So many different instances. And people were all over Zach Ertz last year. I remember people last year talking about Zach Ertz, talking about how, his body language was terrible and he didn't look like he wanted to be here. And like to read into that is so hot takey for me. I don't like it. But this year, I would love to see, and quite frankly, think you will see, a bounce-back year from Zach Ertz. And I know Dallas Goedert's going to get a lot of attention this year, and I think you got a lot of weapons offensively, and I think with the new quarterback as well, you tend to rely on the guys that can be safety blankets. And I think Zach Ertz can be one of the best safety blankets for a quarterback. And I know with the year that he set the receptions record and all that, a lot of people focused it more so on Carson Wentz. It's like the guy sets a record for tight ends, and we take a negative. A lot of people took a negative out of it because, Zach Ertz is just being focused in on too much by Carson Wentz. Why does Carson Wentz suck so much? And it's like, hold on a second. How about the guy that's called upon every single time to make a play makes a play? Like, we went negative there instead of praising a guy like Zach Ertz because we felt that Carson Wentz wasn't scanning the football field nearly well enough as we should. So I understand knowing the schematic side of it, but how about the guy that actually was there every time he was called upon to make a play? And I don't know if he's going to set that record again this year. I would certainly doubt it. But I think you're going to see those production numbers from Zach Ertz like we have seen in years past, where you've seen a guy be consistently there for his quarterback if he needs that safety blanket. Deep route, not there. Devontae Smith covered on a slant route, which I think we're going to see a lot of slant routes from Devontae Smith. I wouldn't be shocked this year at all if you see a couple of slant routes go for 50, 60 yards with Devontae Smith and the way he can run his routes. But at the same time, I think you also see a great year from Zach Ertz again, where he's relied on by his quarterback to make a play whenever called upon. That's what you have in a safety net. And I think that's exactly what we can be for this offense yet again. Quarterback needs a bailout. Where's Zach Ertz? Play breaks down. Where's Zach Ertz? Need a 5-6 yard gain? Where's Zach Ertz? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing from Jalen Hurts to Zach Ertz throughout the entire season. I think we can see that as the season goes on. I mentioned, by the way, this is our Morning Rush segment brought to you by Sky Motorcars and SkyMotorcars.com. It should be a scoozy. There we go. This is what I got for you for Matt Vierling. I mentioned this earlier in the show. Love what I'm seeing from Matt Vierling. Guy coming up, playing some first base, playing center field, playing all over the diamond. Like, I love seeing that from him. But here's something that actually pissed me off. And I was reading this story last week, and it didn't really hit me until I was watching him play this weekend. Matt Vierling comes in as an outfielder, right? And at the Carpenter Complex in spring training, he goes over to his coaches, and he says, hey, let me get some grounders at first base. And they go, no. Like, you're going to be an outfielder. You're not going to be playing first base. Matt Vierling then has to convince his coaches in the Phillies minor league system to give him an opportunity to play first base. So let me get this straight. And I realize, this isn't hindsight, by the way, but I realize this is, the Phillies have tried to correct this already, in that they're already looking for a new director of player development, and that announcement came out last week with Dave Dombrowski shaking up the front office a little bit. Got some new scouting department guys. They're going to be looking for a new director of player development, and this is, I think, a big reason why. So the Phillies, to get this straight, have asked so many different prospects over the last couple of years. Cody Ashley, a third baseman, go play the outfield. Scott Kingery, more recently, second baseman, go play center field. They have asked these guys to be so unbelievably versatile. Yet a young guy like Matt Vierling volunteers his services to be versatile, and your approach is, no, we're good. We don't need you to play first base. And he's like, no, hold on a minute, guys. I can play first. Give me an opportunity to play first. He's asking you to be versatile. And this is the time you're like, nah, we're good. And he's like, no, seriously, play me at first base. And now you see the guy get some reps at first base. In the big league level. What the hell is this minor league system doing with these guys? What the hell is this the development team doing? The director of player development. I understand now you've moved on from it, but if this isn't more of a glaring, flashing sign saying why you need to move on and make changes at the minor league level, I don't know what is. Hey, we want our guys to be versatile. Alec Boehm, go play the outfield. Alec Boehm, go play third base or go play first base. A guy is looking to take those steps at the minor league level, and you tell him thanks, but no thanks, and then he got to convince you to do it. Oh my God, how bass-ackwards is this minor league system for the Phillies? As if you needed more evidence. Anyway, that put me in a bad spot. That put me in such a bad spot, and it hit me when because I read the story last week. And then I see, what was it, game one of this series against the Marlins. Matt Vierling comes up with two separate RBI doubles for you. And you see him play, all over the diamond. And you're going, how the hell does this team ask a second baseman in Scott Kingery to play center field and third base and shortstop? And then you have a guy volunteer to be versatile. And you're like, no, we don't need you to do that. Come on. You only got to play one position. What's the problem? Ass backwards. Can't say. Ray, what's up, Ray? Ray says, why can't Hazley be playing on this team instead of Luke Williams? I don't know what's going on with Adam Hazley. He's just disappeared, basically. I barely seen him. Minor league, big league. He left personal reasons. Still haven't seen why that was. And hey, look, personal reasons are personal reasons. That's your business. I don't get it. But he's also, an 8th overall pick? You'd like to know a little bit of why you're not seeing him produce. So, I don't know. We'll go down that road another day when we get more information. Phillies do get things started today with the Milwaukee Brewers. Want to make sure I hit that one more time. On the bump today, you got Zach Wheeler on the hill for the Phillies, seeing what he could do today against Woodruff. So, he's been Brandon Woodruff for the Brewers has had one hell of a season. 9-7 on the year, 2.35 ERA. We'll see what he's got going on. 7:10 start time, I believe, today in Milwaukee. Oh, excuse me, 2:10. It's an afternoon game for Labor Day. That's right. 2:10 start time this afternoon. So we'll be all ears and all eyes for that. Phillies and Brewers start their series in Milwaukee today. So we'll see how the Phillies start that off. Their series goes till Wednesday, and then the Phillies are back at home to host the Rockies. So it's a 3-game series with the Brew Crew before they take on the Rockies. And then we're back in the NL East after that. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, everybody, today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We got started a little bit late again today, but I appreciate you guys joining us. And happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day, everybody. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow on a fine Tuesday morning with Hugh Lamont Douglas III as we break down how great, what better week to talk to Hugh Douglas than the week leading up to Eagles-Falcons to start week 1 of the NFL regular season for the 2021 season. So let's party. Everyone, thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program. Make sure you guys hit us up and subscribe on YouTube. The YouTube numbers have been great as far as subscriptions. Really appreciate that from you guys. So make sure you subscribe and also download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports Entertainment production. Have a great Labor Day, everybody. Be back with you guys tomorrow. I'm Marc Farzetta from the Steven Singer Studios. Have a great day, everybody. Take it easy.